Live show on Monday. Cool.
Good stuff.
So I'm just going to talk about Bella Gaia, which is essentially my career and a brand that I'm building. And we did perform it live at CreativeTech Week on Monday at the Arts Hub. And a little bit of the story behind it. And talk about how we are expanding into multiple platforms, including VR. So Bella Gaia was birthed out of a meeting with an astronaut, and really their stories of seeing the Earth from space for the very first time, looking out the window of the space station. And when I met Mike Fink, was a NASA astronaut that I met, he told me of how he had this completely life-changing, transformative experience of seeing the Earth from space. And I was so inspired by Mike's story, it got me thinking, how could I bring this transformative experience of seeing the Earth from space for those of us who can't yet go to space. And thus began my journey of figuring this out. And I have a friend, Carter Emmart at AMNH, the Natural History Museum here in New York, who is developing this data visualization software for planetariums that was able to sort of map these flat maps of data. This is fire data by NASA, and map it onto a 3D sphere. It's like a flight simulator for the universe, but you can sort of pull real data from NASA servers and map it on a 3D sphere. Same thing with things like ocean currents. Really, Bella Gaia explores this language of explaining how the Earth is alive without saying a single word. And that is really the amazing thing about technology today, is we can do this kind of stuff and create these amazingly beautiful visualizations that has depth and meaning. And this is not just CGI graphics, this is real data. This is another cool clip of ocean currents and temperature. This was actually remapped for virtual reality. If you see our virtual reality video, this clip is in there. It's pretty amazing. Sort of complete wraparound sphere around you. Things like this is sort of cycling through 12 months of blue marble data to create a time lapse from space. This is over California. You see the snow and the summer dryness cycling back and forth. Again, you see the Earth breathing without saying a single word. We can also make boring spreadsheets like this into interesting KML maps that map onto the Earth. Also, things like current events. When the Gulf of Mexico oil spill was happening, I was downloading live scans of the spill from space, rendering them into the show, and I was performing live at like the Congressional Auditorium and at these conferences. So Bella Gaia is almost like this live MRI scan of the Earth that we can show people what's going on, all human and natural activity on Earth. We have some pretty incredible partners, mainly NASA, that has funded our education program, which I'll show some pictures later. They also curate a lot of the data visualizations that appear in Bella Gaia, and since they are continually churning out new data visualizations from their satellites, they curate it for me, and they're like, Kenji, we have a new visualization, and then I plug it into the show. So it's really like a living piece of media. So really, the media is the core, and this is sort of the different platforms that we work with. So imagine Bella Gaia as this brand and this basically piece of media content where we can then translate it into various different platforms. From education, as I explained, NASA funded a $500,000 project for 4 years using Bella Gaia as an educational tool for K-12 kids to engage them in earth science. The whole pitch with NASA was that you have to engage people with their emotional intelligence, their right brain as well as their left brain. and something that I think is missing in a lot of education is this whole brain thinking. And Bella Gaia is this artistic, emotional, immersive experience that creates that initial engagement, and then it's followed by hands-on workshops. We have a full-blown Planetarium movie that is being licensed to different planetariums around the world. We have a plan to release a streaming feature and the VR platform, which we were showing at the expo last week at CreativeTech Week. And we have a website, something that I want to expand on more. But really the main driver of Bella Gaia so far has been this live show that is scalable from a solo show with just myself performing to an ensemble of 2 to 3 dancers and 2 to 3 live musicians touring to very large theaters around the world, like performing arts centers. And we are going to China this year. We've been to places like the Miller Outdoor Theater for like 5,000 people. We've been to Saudi Arabia, of all places, Philippines, all around the world, and we're now working on a version for a symphony, like an orchestra, to perform with. And then the Bella Gaia Theater is what I'm calling, this is my sort of dream of a sort of Broadway fixed production, like a Cirque du Soleil. So here are just some photos of our Planetarium show. Here's my friend Paul trying out the virtual reality experience. This is the ensemble show with the live performance that I was talking about. We have some incredible world musicians. The experience is not only this orbiting visual experience, but we have a whole cultural experience of zooming in from outer space into different countries around the world, and to celebrate the cultural heritage and music and dance and the human-nature connection of those specific cultures around the world. So we have deep sing on tabla. We have some really beautiful dance sections, really telling this is the India section, telling the story of how the Ganges River is expected to run dry in our lifetimes because of Himalayan ice melt. We have New York section with some break dancers. It is really a visual feast. The Bella Gaia is also built for collaboration. We've done live spoken word with Deepak Chopra. We've had kids at the UNESCO Youth Forum doing live spoken word on stage. We have collaborated live with very exotic instruments, creating custom projects. This was where the Japan section was expanded to include this ancient orchestra called a gagaku, as well as a Buddhist monk on stage. This was really a 10-year dream come true. We worked with Commander Koichi Wakata, transported this ancient instrument called a sho up to the space station on a SpaceX module, and trained him how to play this instrument. And I was live in Houston as he was orbiting above, playing this note, and me performing violin in synchronous with him. And this really kind of defines like who I am as an artist. It is all about ancient future. I love indigenous, ancient cultures and art and spirituality, but I also love technology and the most cutting edge stuff. How do we bring them together? How do we use technology to bring meaning beyond the commercial world and things that I find that don't really push our global planetary culture forward. We've done things at the Copenhagen Climate Conference. Again, more collaborations. This is our NASA education program where we have NASA scientists and we do sort of live interactive classes with kids. These are some photos of these classrooms. It's just an incredible experience. And the data that we have of surveys are just astounding. We have over 95% of the people saying that they have a greater understanding of the importance of the Earth after just one show, as well as we more than double the amount of people who report, from 31% to 64% of people who say they feel like the Earth plays a very important role in their personal lives and their families. Now that is a very important metric in the world of communicating earth science and environmental things. How do you make these large concepts like climate change pertain to you today in your personal life, beyond trying to hook people with images of polar bears? The world is more complex than that, and this is what Bella Gaia does, is show the interconnectedness of our planet in an emotional way that makes it personalized for people to relate to. So with Bella Gaia Theater, this dream of mine of creating a touring production that is really on another level of production, like a Cirque du Soleil type of a thing, where perhaps it sets up camp at a city, and we have a custom designed stage and theater where it really brings the best of full dome immersive visuals with the best of live stage, so you have the best of both worlds. These sort of inflatable domes can now be sort of propped up in a matter of hours. And what we would do in terms of the production and the content is to redevelop. This is a timeline of our 80-minute show, for example, from beginning to end. The blue parts are these orbital sequences. The ones with the arrows are the cultural sections, these sort of cultural visitations that we drop into from space, and developing these sections with more interactive technology with live performance. And I proposed this, actually I was invited by the Dean of Arts and Sciences at the University of Colorado at Boulder to become an artist in residence earlier this year. And so for my residency I proposed doing an R&D project for this. And after working intensely for a month and a half of straight work, we didn't see the light of day, working with this amazing digital software artist named Gordy Cherny, we presented this at the Conference of World Affairs at their Black Box Theater, where it was really, I've been inspired by works like Hakanai and other incredible artists using interactive technology. We had a sort of scrim and a rear screen, the dancer in between, and we were able to create these sort of floating images in front of the dancer, and everything was custom coded. Nothing was pre-rendered, so Gordy was manipulating the visuals live with the dancer. He was almost just as much of a dancer as the dancer herself. But these sort of scenes where you really have this 3D effect without any glasses, this was so real it sort of threw off the autofocus on our iPhone. This is a little 30-second trailer that I made. This, for example, is live painting. So my idea and vision was to explore geometry in nature and their relationship to arabesque patterns in Middle Eastern culture. So here are just some photos from our premiere, me and Gordy, and in front of a very large audience that we actually had to repeat the show multiple times. And I want to point out, in the front there, above the projector, is this camera called an Ozo. This is so Nokia, that made all our cell phones, they sold their component, and they've started making virtual reality stereoscopic cameras called the Ozo. It's like a $60,000 camera. My friend is a reseller of one, and he wanted to shoot our show. So this was shot in stereo virtual reality. This camera is pretty sweet, and we're now trying to crunch the data from these capture sequences and hopefully share origin stories for virtual reality as well. But I think, you know, these different platforms that I've shown you and talked about, they all revolve around the same content, the same story. Really, the story and the narrative is the central sort of pillar where these spokes branch out from, and it really creates this way for audiences to experience the same sort of content in completely different ways and engage with it, perhaps even on a deeper level than just seeing one platform itself. So I'm going to open it up to any questions that people may have. I think we're out of time.
We are out of time, but thank you for sharing, Kenji. That was a great, great look into your art. We have time for questions.
We can do one or two.